Today, I'm bringing you 5 more budget commander staples in each color. Let's get into it. We're gonna kick things off in black. First up, there's Living Death. Living Death reads, each player exiles all creature cards from their graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures they control, then puts all cards exiled this way onto the battlefield. A lot of black decks like messing around with their graveyards, and if this is you, you're gonna want this card in your deck. Best of all, it's only $3. Up next, we got Finale of Eternity. For black, and X, at sorcery speed, you can destroy up to 3 target creatures with toughness X or less. And if X is 10 or more, then we can return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is going to be a good pickup because in the early game, it's removal, and in the mid to late game where you can add more to X and hopefully get that 10, it's going to be removal and recursion all in one. Best of all, this card comes in at a whopping $1. Sticking to the whole graveyard theme, up next, we got Command the Dreadhorde. For 4 and 2 black, we can choose any number of target creatures and or planeswalker cards in graveyards. Then Command the Dreadhorde deals damage to you equal to the total number of mana value of the chosen cards, and then you can put them onto the battlefield under your control. And in a deck like Veto, where you're going to be gaining life like crazy, this really isn't going to be a huge downside for you. And better yet, this card's only going to run you 35 cents. Moving right along, we got Grey Merchant of Asphodel. When old Gary here enters the battlefield, we're going to drain each of our opponents for X, where X is our devotion to black. And then we're going to gain life equal to that devotion. Better yet, he's only going to run us 50 cents. Lastly in black, we got Vorpal Sword. Vorpal Sword costs 1 black to cast and 2 black to equip. Then equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has Death Touch. Then we can pay 3 black mana and 5 generic mana, and equipped creature gains. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. And did I mention this card's only going to run you $1? Up next in red is Relentless Assault. This card lets us untap all creatures that attack this turn. Then after that, there's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. This is a powerful extra attack step that'll let you double up on attack triggers or even go all out on up to 2 opponents. And it only comes in at $1.75. Berserker's Onslaught is an enchantment that reads, attacking creatures you control have double strike. You're going to want to consider this card for any deck that wants to be dealing combat damage. And this card's only going to run you $2.69. Nice. Keeping it moving, we got Taurian Mauler. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Taurian Mauler. If I had $1 for every time this creature got a +1/+1 counter on it, I'd have enough money for a full playset of dual lands. But unlike those dual lands, this card's only going to run you 50 cents. Up next, we got Banefire. Banefire deals X damage to any target, and if X is 5 or more, this spell can't be countered and the damage can't be prevented. In the early game, this is going to function as removal, and in the late game, it can just straight up kill someone. All for the low price of 75 cents. Lastly in red, we've got Morag, Fury of Akum. With Morag, each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it is attacked this turn, and it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, there's going to be an additional combat phase after this one, and at the beginning of combat, untap all creatures you control. Now, my rules lawyer wants me to clear a few things up about this card's ability. Morag's first ability counts how many times a creature attacked, not how many times it's dealt damage. If a landfall ability resolves during your pre-combat main phase, the additional combat main phases are going to happen before your regular combat main phase. You'll still untap creatures you control at the beginning of your additional combat phases, but not at the beginning of your regular combat main phase. And with all that complicated shit out of the way, this specific copy of Morag only costs $3.50, and I think it's well worth the price. First up in green, we've got Earthshaker Giant. Earthshaker Giant has trample, and when this creature enters the battlefield, other creatures get +3/+3, gain trample until the end of the turn. This is a great way to pump your team for some extra damage, and it's only going to run you $5. Up next, we got Nissa, who shakes the world. Her static ability makes it so that whenever we tap a forest, we get an additional green mana. Our +1 makes it so that we can put 3 +1/+1 counters on up to one target non-land creature we control, untap it, and then it becomes an elemental creature with vigilance and haste, but it's still a land. Then our ultimate ability makes it so we can rip every forest out of our library and stick it onto the battlefield tapped. And we can do all that for as low as 420. Moving right along, we got Giant Ataphage. This 7/7 for 7 with trample has the ability that whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we can create a token that's a copy of Giant Ataphage. This is a great top end for all those combat decks out there, or even token strategies. And all this for only 75 cents. Then there's Beastmaster's Ascension. This enchantment makes it so whenever a creature you control attacks, you may put a quest counter on Beastmaster's Ascension. As long as Beastmaster Ascension has 7 or more quest counters on it, creatures you control get +5/+5. And all this power is only going to run us $350. Last up in green, we've got Primal Command. This sorcery lets us choose two. Either target player gains 7 life, put target non-creature permanent on top of its owner's library, target player shuffles his or her graveyard into their library, or you can search your library for a creature card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. This is an excellent way to tutor up any creature card in your library for only 60 cents. Starting off strong in white, we've got Angel of Destiny. This flying double striker is going to make it so that whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you and that player gain that much life. And then, at the beginning of your end step, each player Angel of Destiny attacked this turn is going to lose the game. This card just might be one of the best budget finishers in white. It's cheap enough to cast, it has evasion, and it has the potential to kill someone written right there on the card. And if all that wasn't enough, you can find this card for as low as $475. Following that up, we've got Mantle of the Ancients. This aura lets us enchant creature you control, and when Mantle of the Ancients enters the battlefield, return any number of target auras or equipment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to the enchanted creature. And then, the creature gets +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to it. This is going to be great for any aura or equipment style deck, and it comes in at only $229. Up next, there's Emiria Shepherd. When her landfall ability triggers, you may return one non-land permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. And if that land is a plains, then you can return that non-land permanent card to the battlefield. And best of all, it's only going to run you $1. Next up on the list, we got Teleportation Circle. With this enchantment, at the beginning of our end step, we can exile up to one target artifact or creature, and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, letting us double up on our ETB triggers. And this is going to teleport straight into our collection for only 30 cents. Lastly in white, we've got Settle the Wreckage. This instant speed spell lets us exile all attacking creature target player controls. Then that player may search their library for that many basic lands and put them onto the battlefield tapped. While it doesn't feel good to do this when your opponent is attacking with a ton of creatures, it's better than dying. But on the flip side, you can exile all your creature tokens to get that many lands out of your deck. And you can do all this for as low as 30 cents. Up next in blue, we have Teferi's Ageless Insight. If you would draw a card except for the first one you draw in each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. This enchantment's going to let us capitalize and draw even more cards off our spells. And you can pick this card up for only $4. Up next, we have Archmage Emeritus. His Magecraft ability makes it so whenever we cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, we can draw a card, essentially turning all our instant and sorceries into cantrips. And you can pick this up for only $4 as well. Next up on the list, we've got Finale of Revelation. This sorcery lets us draw X cards, and if X is 10 or more, instead, you're going to shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw X cards, and untap up to 5 lands. And then you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Exile Finale of Revelation. Finale lets us draw as much cards as we have mana and lets us do it for only $5.50. And then we've got Imprison in the Moon. With this aura, we can enchant land, creature, or planeswalker and turn it into a land that only taps for colorless and it loses all other types and abilities. This is going to be great for bricking someone's commander, turning off someone's Gaia's Cradle, or keeping someone from popping their ult on their planeswalker. And not to mention, this card's only $1.50. Now let's close things out with River's Rebuke. With this sorcery, we can return all non-land permanents target player controls, setting them back to the Stone Age. And all this for just 30 cents. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you found some cards worth picking up. And if there's a card you think people should pick up too, do us all a favor and share it down in the comments below. And I'll see you in the next one.